Hey, good evening, Top fans. Bill from TopFanRivalry here with another Top Fan Rivalry Clubhouse tonight. Tonight we got some familiar faces. We haven't done this in a couple of weeks, but we got some familiar faces. We got Ned, who's our resident Braves/Angels fan. We got Rob Peterson joining us again, who's our Cubs fan. And as we talk trade deadline, I don't know if we're going to hear a lot from Rob, to just keep him okay and sane. And then we got Dave, who's our resident White Sox fan. So, fellas, we appreciate you being with us, and thanks for your time. Let's early on. Let's get into it. Let's talk trade deadline. We were going to talk about it last week, and a number of things came up. And so, Dave, let's start with the White Sox. How do you guys think you did in the trade deadline? How do you feel about going forward for the division over the next 55 games or so?
Well, I think we had a couple of needs right off the bat. Second base was a big one, and then obviously the bullpen's always a need, I think, rolling into the playoffs. So I think we addressed both of those. I like it that we went under the radar for the second baseman from the Indians, didn't overpay for somebody like Trevor Story or some of the other names that were getting thrown around. So that was all good. I think he'll be a good fit, and he's under control for one more year. So that's good, because we gave up our second baseman to the Cubs for Craig Kimbrell. And, a year ago, I would have told you I wouldn't have traded for Kimbrell for a bag of baseballs, but he's turned it around, and he's getting outs, and he's getting swings and misses, and he's a good addition. We paid a lot for him. Madrigal's going to be a really good player for the Cubs. But, and then we got another relief pitcher, Tepera, that really looked good, except his first outing, I think he blew a save. So I'm not sure if that was planned, if the Cubs told him go below one and make us look good, and then you can turn it on, or what. But yeah, that wasn't good. So anyway, I think we're good. And the other thing is we're going to get Grandal and Luis Robert back here in the next couple of weeks. We already got Eloy back, so those are like trade deadline acquisitions too. So all signs point to the right direction.
Yeah, I saw the Robert thing the other day. I was reading about that. Obviously, I've got a vested interest because he's on my fantasy team, and he was one of my power hitters. That's and I've had a bunch of guys in my fantasy league saying, "Why don't you just drop him? Why don't you just drop him?" These are all guys that want to pick them up, right?
Sure.
So I'm riding out that IL stint.
They're talking about late next week.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Ned, do you want to talk to us about the Braves and what the Braves did?
Yeah, well, the Braves kind of stepped it up there kind of in the last hour, getting down to the trade deadline, and went out and pretty much went their whole outfield. It's kind of funny that they had to go out and get 4 guys to replace Ronald Acuna. That just tells you how important and what type of impact that he had. I mean, Bill, I don't know how you feel as a Dodger fan, but if you had to face the Braves again, do you feel more comfortable now that Ronald Acuna is not in the lineup? I have to ask that question. We'll get to that in a second, but they went out and they got some good quality players. The one I did like was the fact that they didn't go out and trade a whole lot for what they got. They've got reacquired Adam Duvall, who was a great player for them last year. Good bat in the middle of the lineup. Yeah, it doesn't hit for average, but it hits for power and drives in runs, which is what they're looking for. And Jorge Soler out of Kansas City, who's a big bat as well. They really needed something to protect Freddie Freeman on the back end of the lineup, and it kind of extends the lineup a little bit. And the pitching, they addressed that need with Rich Rodriguez going out and stealing the closer from Pittsburgh, which was nice. So that kind of gives them another option in the bullpen now. So, Kimbrell had been linked to Atlanta because, obviously that's where he came up in the system and everything. They thought maybe he was going to reunite with them, but Rich Rodriguez, he's under control for another year. So, he's going to be in their closer next year, which is a good thing. So, I really like what they did, because it's kind of like, they didn't go out and get a superstar, but I think they got guys to fill the voids. Plus they've got, catcher Travis d'Arnaud come off a rehab assignment. So I think that'll solidify. Not only can the guy catch, but he can hit a little bit, and that will fill the void where, and they went out and they acquired Stephen Voigt from the Diamondbacks as their backup, a veteran guy. So, which I thought was a good pickup as well. This was a franchise record of using 7 catchers before the All-Star break this year, which is, if you think about it, it's really quite amazing. So, I really like their chances of catching the Mets. When the Braves faced the Mets last week, they beat them 3 out of 5, but that they could have swept them a 5-game series. They lost both games by 1 run, and in both of those games they were right in it. But that's the kind of thing now is they, just like all these other teams that are competing, they got to win the games that they need to win, and they got to be able to, got to be able to beat, Colorado, got to be able to beat the Diamondbacks, got to be able to beat, Washington. I mean, that's what they've got coming up on their schedule. If they can't do that, then, obviously they don't have a chance. But, I think their pitching is, their starting pitching has actually come around over this last month. They've got this one kid, Kyle Muller, that's just, he's been outstanding. I think he has an ERA of under 2 in his first 6 starts, and it's a real big kid. And he was touted as some trade bait as well. But I'm glad they didn't let him go. Because he could be one of those guys that is kind of the future for them. So I'm really glad to see that Charlie Morton didn't go either, because Morton had been linked to the Giants. But all in all, I think it was a pretty successful trade deadline. An interesting part this year is there's no waiver trades. The league's not doing that this year. So I think this is why you saw, probably the best trade deadline probably ever, and probably the biggest names moving so fast as they did, because of the fact that there's no waiver trades after July 31st. So it's just real exciting to see all that. So as far as the Angels go, well, they're the Angels. They like to stay put, and but I won't waste the time talking about them. I'll let the Angels fans figure that one out. But
so the Angels dumped Andrew Heaney to the Yankees for a guy with the last name of Junk. And so I'm getting text messages saying the Angels dumped a pitcher for junk. Oh, so many jokes are coming around. I don't know if you guys remember Viliami, who's been on this show a couple of times, but Viliami's like, we got junk. We got junk. I was like, what's he talking about? I looked up the trade. I'm like, oh, that's actually funny. Anyways.
But I think that just kind of tells you how desperate teams are for pitching. Andrew Heaney is not, I wouldn't even consider him, he's a back end of the rotation guy. And, that's really what New York was trying to do I don't think New York's got enough to, even though they went out and got Rizzo and Gallo, I don't think they've got enough to catch Tampa Bay or Boston, but it's just my opinion.
Agreed. All right, Pete, it's up to you, man. I am so sorry we got to talk trade deadline, but go. I'm so sorry.
How much time do we have here?
Man, this is going to be good.
I tell you what, when we traded away Jock middle of September, it was going to be a busy deadline. I knew it, and honestly, I even wonder if we didn't have that 11-game skid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so sure that we're still not trading some of these free agents for top prospects, because the emotional side of me being a diehard Cubs fan took it very hard. My sons took it extremely hard. This is kind of their first go round when they saw some of their favorite Cubs players leave the team. I've been through it several times, so I was anticipating it. So the emotional side of things, it was a tough day. I'm not going to lie. It felt like we were all in mourning, like we lost our grandma and everything in between. But on the business side of it, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense for me to see we've got these 3 three players who have been outstanding for us for several years now. Look at all the things that they were able to accomplish. Obviously, the biggest thing was the World Series in 2016, but these guys were phenomenal players, not only on the field, but the things that they did off the field with their charities. They provided some of the best baseball for Cubs fans in my lifetime. I've been watching since '84, and this was a lot of fun seeing all these guys come out to play every day. But on the business side, we had to do it. We've got 3 free agents and Javi and KB and Rizzo. What do? You let them continue to play and then potentially lose them and not get anything at the end of the season. That didn't make sense. So I've got to do my research, though. It's been so exhausting. I'm not going to lie. It's been exhausting over the past few days, just trying to get through this. So I haven't had time to really dive deep into some of the prospects that we got. But what I'm hearing is that we've got some good pickups. And so, if this is going to be a rent to own, at least for 1 out of the 3, maybe that's worth it. Maybe that's worth it in the long run. I know that Jed Hoyer, our general manager, he had specific talks with each one of those guys, and he had mentioned that, this could be a temporary thing. We'll be very interested in talking to you guys in free agency. Whether they come back or not, they're going to be demanding high dollar. I don't anticipate us shelling out a whole lot for any of them, but you never know. It's going to be an interesting time, but it was tough. It was tough, to say the least. We're still trying to get over it. My youngest son, he's probably the biggest Cubs fan out of all my boys. All my boys love the Cubs, but my youngest son, he watches Cubs baseball more than I do. And that's saying a lot. And he called me. I wasn't at home, and he called me, and he couldn't talk. He was bawling so bad once Javi got traded. And then it was lights out when his favorite player left, KB. So it's going to be interesting. Kimbrel, I think he's going to do some good things for the Sox. He has been lights out for us. This year has been amazing. It was kind of a testament to him on what he was doing last year as well. I think that first year he came in with the Cubs, coming in so late, he just kind of had a down year, and it was hard for him to adjust that late in the game. But he's going to be a great pitcher for you guys, and I wish him well. He was a lot of fun to watch. So
Rob, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So the Cubs are a big market team that make money hand over fist at Wrigley Field and with their marquee TV network and all of the stuff around Wrigley Field. And the Ricketts are billionaires 15 times over, probably more. How does that make you feel that they don't want to keep some of these guys around and they're squeezing nickels?
I had this conversation with my brothers today, and it's where from a business standpoint, you have to ask yourself, is this investment? Because we've been burned in the past on some long-term investments. Soriano, even currently with Hayward. But they do have money. We are a big market team, and so that's the part where we scratch our head and say, look, these are guys that are going to fill the seats. These are guys that are going to bring people out. Our current Cubs right now, bless their hearts, I think it's going to take some time, and there's still a lot of good players, but they're not the big name players that people want to come and see. You got Willie Contreras, and he's the future leader as of right now, and he's a great player, but he's not the star attraction that these guys were. And so it is interesting. We talked a lot about the renovations, how much that cost, but a lot of that was funded. by taxpayer dollars. They were over budget from what I understand, with Rick saying they were 100% over budget. So that means that was going into the billions, over $1 billion. I don't know what the reasoning is. I know we have money and I'm not sure exactly why we're not spending it, but it's not my money. But it is a head scratcher for sure. I would have thought for sure. Honestly, I was thinking that they were going to re-sign KB to a long-term deal before the deadline, and then maybe bring back Rizzo or Javi, one of the two, in free agency. And so we were watching to the very last second of that deadline. And once 2 o'clock my time came, we thought, holy cow, we're safe. Chris Bryant's not leaving. And then just like that, he's gone. So only time will tell. It'll be interesting to see this off season. It's going to be interesting to see if they're going to open up their pocketbooks, but I don't know.
So yeah, the prospects they got for Bryant and Baez and Rizzo better be very good, because the comparison is the White Sox kept Paul Konerko for his entire career. First baseman, everybody loved him. Could they have gotten something for him during that time? Of course they could have, but they were loyal to him and loyal to the fans.
Yeah.
To me, a guy like Rizzo, you keep no matter what.
Yeah, for sure.
And if the prospects they got from the Yankees don't pan out, then it looks like a really stupid move on their part for not keeping the guy that puts people in the seats, and for all he did in the community and everything.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
No, exactly. And with Rizzo, they all had mentioned they would love to play for the Cubs their whole career. They're in a perfect situation. But for Rizzo especially, he kind of took a discount when he first signed on with the Cubs. Now, he wasn't a proven player like he is now, but the Cubs fans are very loyal to the Cubs, but they're also very, very loyal to this team that ended a 108-year drought. And so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of an impact this makes on the attendance at Wrigley Field. I don't know if it's going to make a whole lot, but time will tell. Right now, like I'm in Colorado right now on business, and I was planning on going to the Cubs game. They're coming into town, playing the Rockies, and ordinarily I'd be excited and pumped about getting out and just after a long day of work and going over to Coors Field and watching some Cubs baseball. But right now, that passion is just not there, and it's morning time for us all, but this will translate into how fans feel in Wrigleyville, and it's going to make a difference, I think.
Yeah, the fans are.
Rob, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Are you comfortable with your field manager, David Ross? Because I as you were talking about that, I was wondering, how much of that really played into this. Because he never had any big league experience before, and I know he's a likable guy was a likable guy in the clubhouse as a player. But what are they saying in Wrigleyville about his presence in the clubhouse as a leader?
Yeah, I like Rossi. I think Rossi's. I honestly, the bigger thing to me is how you lead, and he's got some experience, some good Major League Baseball experience as a player. Won 2 World Series championships. He had what it takes as a player to be a manager. A lot of people could see that in him as a potential manager down the road. Jumping right in the hot seat right after you replace a legend like Madden is a difficult thing to do. But I think Rossi did a great job. All the fans really like David Ross. I don't know. I haven't heard any rumblings behind closed doors, but from what I could tell, he was more of a disciplinarian than Madden ever was. And so I don't know if that ever rubbed anybody wrong. I doubt it, because, he was a proven winner, but time will tell with that too. I know the front office is very high on Ross, and he, we did win a Central Division last year, albeit it was 60 games. But that was a good starting point. That 11 game losing streak really hurt us. We were on a roll, and then we hit a rock bottom during those 11 games that we lost, and we just couldn't recover. And so it's going to be interesting to see how he fights out of this adversity, because it's something that we haven't really dealt with for some time.
Well, and Pete, I gotta tell you, it seems weird to me. And Dave, you had something you want to say here in a sec, but it seems tough, because I remember when Mike Piazza was traded. So I remember what your boys are feeling like when Mike Piazza was traded to the Marlins, literally for 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I just, it broke my heart, because you watch these guys growing up, and I was surprised. Rizzo's 31. He still got plenty of gas in the tank. KB is 29. He's got plenty of fuel to go. And Javi Baez, I mean, the guy still plays the game like he's a 12-year-old kid on the schoolyard. I mean, remember what he did in Pittsburgh this season? So
Yeah.
it just, to me, I'm with Dave. I'm like, man, you guys had gotten like the number 1 through 75 MLB prospects for this, because otherwise, as a Cubs fan, I would be like, what? Like you're saying, you're not running out to Colorado to go watch the game. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, Baez, say what you want about him, but defense first infielders aren't all that in demand. I mean, there's a lot of them out there. He'll hit his home runs here and there, but he doesn't hit for average. He's fun to watch in the field, but I don't see a lot of value there on the market. The other thing is, Atlanta, Freddie Freeman's been there forever. Perfect example of another guy where the club stuck with the guy. They were terrible for a long time, but they stuck with their guy and they built around him. So I think if I was a Cub fan, I would be pretty upset that they can't find one of these guys that's worth building around and just keep him to keep the fans happy and keep them from burning down, the Ricketts offices or something. This is the second time now, for those who are counting, that Theo has gone in, built a winner, and left a disaster on the way out that somebody else had to clean up.
Mm-hmm.
Second time.
Yeah.
So Pete, I guess I have to ask you this. So I know you guys celebrate in November with the big celebration. Do we get to come over to your house now every July 31st and have like a dinner of mourning or something like that? I mean, next year, can Dave and Ned and I show up at your doorstep on the 31st and say, hey, Pete, it's day of mourning, let's go.
Yeah, I'll be wearing my Konerko jersey, and he'll wear a Freeman jersey, just to remind you that we kept our guys.
Yeah. You know what? You're welcome. Just bring some of the hard stuff. That root beer on the rocks is always something that'll go a long way with me. So.
Well, Pete, I can't defend myself on this whole giving up on people, because, hey, Dave, where did Paul Konerko start his career?
Los Angeles.
Yep, and we gave up on him. Where did Mike Piazza
to Cincinnati?
Yep. Where did Mike Piazza start his career? And we gave up on him. Like, the Dodgers have a history of that too. So Pete, I know you're paid, brother. I'm feeling you right now.
Let's just take that a little step further and talk about DJ LeMahieu and Josh Donaldson, and the Cubs gave up on both of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's the interesting thing about baseball, is that you don't know who's going to pan out and who isn't. There's so many examples in baseball where you trade a guy, they end up doing well, and you look like a fool, but then you hold on to a guy and give him a long-term contract, and it is a complete bust after the second year. And so it's really hard. That's a hard job, but I guess that's why they get paid the big bucks. They got to make the hard decisions and
yeah,
go smooth.
I agree with that. But if there was ever a guy to take a chance on, it's Anthony Rizzo.
Absolutely. He was the heart and soul of this team, and what he brought to the table. This is the one thing that makes me mad really quick. The frustrating thing, I think, for all Cubs fans is that he was the guy that we built around. You know, he came in when we were losing 100 games. And then things started rolling. We started getting some good draft picks. We were doing some good things in our farm system. We were doing some awesome trades for our farm. And then everything was built around Anthony Rizzo, and he became a true leader. He was a leader in our clubhouse. Very emotional guy, very passionate. He did everything that you want your star player to do, and you want to see his, like, he's the type of guy that you will see his statue outside of Wrigley Field when his playing days are over. And so for them not to give him a contract, or from what I understand, they offered him a 5-year, like $70 million deal. Come on, that's way below his what his worth is. You got to pay him a little bit more and just show a little. He turned it down. Show a little bit of you know, a little bit of class to somebody who ended a drought that nobody thought would ever happen in our lifetime. And he played with a passion on his sleeve that everybody could see. It's that of all of the trades, that one was definitely the one that hurt, because it felt like we were doing him dirty. That was a hard one.
Yeah, I'll take it a step further here, right? So he's already off to a great start in New York. Who else do the Yankees have that's even close to him as far as leadership and the on-field presence? They've got a lot of good players, but you've got the Stantons and the Judges and those kind of guys that really don't exude leadership.
No.
I'd be willing to say that he's got a golden opportunity to do the same thing in New York and become even bigger than he ever was in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, Boone even mentioned after, I think, the second game, his presence is immediately felt right away. The leadership that he's bringing over here, he comes with a package of, he's got this fun, kind of a laid back attitude with the strong leadership presence, because he's been there and he's been doing it for several years. And he said that's made an immediate impact on his club, and it's gonna pay off. We'll see where it pays off as far as where they end up in the division, but I think he's making a powerful impact on the Yankees right now, and it's something they needed for sure.
Well, talk about salt in an open wound, Pete, is, you know, Rizzo goes first game, goes yard. Baez goes to the Mets, goes yard. KB goes yard, which, by the way, I mean, he went to the Giants, so I can't be too excited about that. But I mean, that had to have also been a salt in an open wound thing.
We watched every single game, anticipating something good to happen. We saw exactly why we loved them playing for the Cubs all these years. And I'll admit, we were sitting in church on Sunday in a very important meeting on our phones, watching Chris Bryant, both of his first and second at bat, when we weren't supposed to. So we're anxious to see how he was going to do, and it was fun to see them in different uniforms. As hard as it is, it was fun to see them succeed and see the fans in those cities adore those guys from the start. They're getting to experience what we got to experience for several years, and I'm hoping that we can bring some of those guys back.
So boys, before I ask you what you think the last 55 games happens, for the Dodger fans that are going to watch this, I have to say something about the Dodgers trades. Okay, insane. When you have a pitching rotation now, Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, Julio Urias, if you don't repeat or come close to it, you got problems. You got a lot of problems. I love the Trey Turner deal. I have heard up and down. I did a live radio talk show in Orange County, California yesterday. And the folks that did it, that had me on, is a guy named Chris and a gal named Annie. They had me on and we were talking a little bit about this. I love that because that puts pressure on guys like Cody who aren't producing right now, and guys like Corey to continue to produce. If they don't produce, Trey Turner can play shortstop, he can play second base, he can play center field. So they don't produce, and Cody's hitting a buck. I think with his 2 hits on Saturday, he raised his average to 161. So there's a lot of talk in Dodger Town right now. 17, not so good. 18, and not too bad. 19, lights out, MVP. 20, not so good at all. 20, 21, not so good. So was 19 just a fluke, or is it like going forward? Is it something that we're going to see consistently? So a lot of fun to talk about. I was very excited to see Max Scherzer come over. I was surprised about Trey Turner. I do think, like Dave mentioned about giving up a bunch of stuff, I think we gave up a little bit too much because Max is an absolute rental. He's a 2-month rental. That's all he is. Now, we won't have Trevor Bauer's salary probably next season. Trevor's probably pitched his last game for a while, for a long while. And that's another topic that we'll talk about another time. But he's probably pitched his last game. So we can chase after Max with some of that money. Trey Turner made it pretty clear when he came over that he's here for one more season and that he doesn't want to be on the West Coast permanently. So we did give up, we gave up our top catching prospect, although the Fresh Prince of LA, Will Smith's doing just fine. And we gave up Josiah Gray, which was one of our pitching prospects. But again, you still have Clayton for a couple of seasons. You got Walker Buehler, you got Julio Urias, and David Price will eventually learn how to be a starting pitcher again. So I'm not too brokenhearted about that. And case in point, all of the teams mentioned here, the Dodgers, the Braves, the Cubs, the White Sox, you're talking big market teams. You're talking about history of winning. No disrespect to the A's or to the Royals or to the teams that had great teams in the 70s, or the Miami Marlins, or that are little small market teams that aren't necessarily winning. If the Dodgers make a serious run, get back to the World Series or even repeat, it's not going to be a problem signing bigger players because people are going to want to come, to LA. Masks and all, recall and all, whatever happens, people are going to want to come and play. And that happens when the Cubs won the World Series in 16, your stock went up. When the Braves won the World Series, when the White Sox won the World Series in 05, your stock goes up. When the Braves had that run of 12 or 15 years where they won their division and got deep into the playoffs every year, if the Dodgers were trying to grab a player and the Braves had the opportunity, people would take the Braves. So, just that is what it is. And for the Orange County people and for the Angels, you still got to get pitching. You still have to get pitching. It just, you've got great bats. You have to get pitching. You don't get pitching, then you guys are going to go down as having one of the best players ever to play the game and never having a playoff series win. And it all goes back to pitching. And at some point in the middle of this gigantic contract that Mike Trout has, we'll see him wearing the Phillies jersey at some point. And there's a decent chance that the Angels will be crazy enough to pay for that. Because right now, the Dodgers are paying the league minimum to Tio Albert. And guess what? The Angels are paying the rest of his $26 million contract or whatever it is. And he is killing the ball. He had 3 or 6 hits this weekend with 6 RBIs or some ridiculous thing. He's just on fire. So, yep.
So who's paying Anthony Rizzo to play the rest of the season?
The Cubs are.
Yep. The Yankees aren't paying one nickel.
Nope.
He retained his whole salary.
Is that not crazy? That's crazy to me.
It's borderline insane.
Yeah.
So how much fun, we know this is probably not going to happen, no disrespect to you, Pete, but how much fun would it be if the Cubs would have been in the World Series with the Yankees this year? Rizzo's playing for the Yankees and the Cubs are paying him. How much fun would that be for baseball irony?
Well, we could have the Rockies suck, but it would be funny to see the Rockies and the Cardinals in the playoffs too, and watch Arenado while the Rockies are paying him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, boys, give me a 90. This has been I love this. This has been fun. This was what I was hoping was going to happen for tonight. Pete, you're taking it like a champ. I love you. Trust me, I was there with Mike Piazza when it all happened. And what ticked me off is we got out of that deal, we sent him to the Marlins, and he was a Marlin for 48 hours. I felt like everybody was rejecting the guy. I'm like, bring him back, bring him back. So let's go around again. We'll start with you, Dave, then Ned, and then Pete. Give me 90 seconds of what you think your team needs to do these last 55 games in order to place where they want to place. And if we're talking playoffs, go deep in the playoffs. But Dave, let's start with you.
Well, it's pretty simple. We got to just put everything together and start destroying the teams that are at the bottom of the standings and beat the teams that are playoff bound. I mean, we play the Yankees next week in Chicago. We need to make a statement there. You can't be losing series to Kansas City and Detroit and Minnesota anymore. They've got to put it together, and that's the challenge. We've got a 8 or 9 game lead. No teams in that division are going to catch us. So now it's time to get ready for what's coming in October and make sure that everybody's ready for that. And I think overall the pitching's going to be ready. The question to me is the hitting going to be right there with them? We get all these guys back. Where are you going to fit them all in? The Jake Lambs and the Brian Goodwins of the world are probably not going to make it. But that's the key. Take a look at the schedule, circle the ones that are going to the playoffs, and make sure you beat them. Send a message.
Yeah, and if you haven't read Dave's article yet, Ned or Rob, I loved how he said that, because he said that in his article about the last go around, these last 60 games, or the second half, I should say, with the White Sox, is you can't lose to Detroit, you can't lose to Kansas City. It's just beat up on those easy teams, but gear up for those other teams. So if you haven't read it yet, it's a great read. Ned, Braves.
They've been on this streak of win one, lose one, win one, lose one, and I think they're on 20 consecutive games now where they're 10-10, and it's been a win and then a loss. So they need to put a win streak together, and right now is probably the opportunity for them to do that. They play a couple teams that are vulnerable, starting with St. Louis here. In St. Louis, they have 3 winnable games with the former Cub John Lester on the mound, and Jay Happ and some other lefty that St. Louis is going to throw. But my whole point is they're very, very winnable games against winnable starters, and Bill, this by, watching them last year in the playoffs. The Braves are very capable of, putting crooked numbers on the scoreboard in the first few innings to really, really, put the game out of reach early. So that's really what it comes down to. And also to try to stay healthy down the stretch. If they can keep their pitching staff healthy, get Wayscar Noah back, who was off on an injury. If they can get him back and use him as a one reliever or even as a spot starter, then I think they're in pretty good shape. But the challenge is they have to leapfrog over 2 teams to take over the division, and that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So they can't be scoreboard watching. They got to be able to take care of the business in front of them, one game at a time, and start winning multiple games and start winning series, winning 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, something like that, to really, really make a dent in this whole thing. But it's very, very, it's very winnable. I mean, it's, the NL champion could have 86 wins, could win the division with 86, and that's very, very doable for where they are now. So.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking at the standings right now, and you guys are only 3.5 out. And what's interesting is I was talking with Jackson, and you guys have a lot of games with like the Phillies and some Mets and things like that. And so you can't, like you say, you can't win one, lose one. You've got to put a string of 4 or 5 up. And what drives me batty about, and you mentioned it for last season, but what drives me batty about the Braves is usually teams look at a pitcher their first time through, and maybe they have a little success, maybe they don't, but it seems like the Braves last season and part of this season just jump on people early. You mentioned Ronald Acuna and asked me if I would prefer to face the lineup now without him. Absolutely, because you never know what that guy's going to do. And so yeah, so All right, Pete, this is going to be a tough one for you, but I feel like Pete tonight has been that boxer that's in the corner and he's getting ready to go down, and then he gets another jab, and the referee's just sitting there watching it, going, "It's okay, he's still breathing. It's okay."
It's not lights out yet. It's not lights out yet.
I'm not throwing in the towel yet, and this corner man is just watching him take these punches, boom, boom, boom. So Pete, 12 and a half out, like, it's not looking pretty for the friendly confines.
No, and that's fine. At this point, honestly, if we finish up the season at 500, that's a win. What I would like to see for the rest of the season with these final games is to see guys like the Ian Happs or the David Bodie's, or guys like that to really step it up. This is their time to shine. And Wilson Contreras, he is the vocal leader, and he's got a lot of passion. Right now, this is Wilson Contreras' team. And I would love to see those guys just really step it up. We've got some great young players. I mean, Horner, he's going to be a great player for us. He's got a lot of good contact on the ball. But I want to see these guys just really step it up now that they don't really have those guys who have been leading the Cubs. They don't have them to turn to now. They are them. And what about this Ortega guy? He 3 home runs yesterday, or was it yesterday or the day before? He's got some good pops. So we've still got some good baseball players over there in the clubhouse. It's just a matter of finding themselves and then resetting and then just focusing on going out there and playing baseball every day. I just want to, I hope that what comes from all of this is just for them to find the leadership abilities that they have within them and put it to work. Showcase that right now so that going into 2022, it's going to have a different feel, but they're going to be confident and they're going to be ready to go.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good way to look at it. Being happy breaking even at 500 with everything that's happened, that's a great way to look at it. That's a very positive outlook. So, all right. So the world champion, Los Angeles Dodgers, that's for you, Ned. The world champion, Los Angeles Dodgers. We've got a very, very weird August coming up. If you would have told me we were 3 games out starting August, I would have told you were crazy. But then if you would have told me that Kirsch would have been on the IL, we would have signed a huge contract with the guy that's going to be in prison here pretty quick. And then you're looking at Dave, you're going, come on, Kershaw's always on the IL. But
Exactly.
But if you were to tell me he was going to go on the IL, the number 2 guy was going to be going to jail, that Mookie was going to be out with a bad hip, that Cody was going to get hit 160, that Corey was going to get hit on the hand, right, and be out for a month and a half, I would have said, okay, maybe it makes sense. But we have the Asterisks tomorrow night, Wednesday night, followed up by the Angels, which is a good 3-game set right there. Everybody always gears up for the Angels, regardless of how good or bad each team is. And then we've got Phillies and we've got the Mets for 6 this month. Sandwiched in there with the Pirates and the Friars, the San Diego Padres. Without Fernando Tatis, that lineup looks a little different. That Adam Frazier deal makes so much more sense now that Tatis is out. But it'll be very, very interesting to see how this plays out for these boys. We got to have a really, really good August. We got to give you some help, Ned. We got to beat up on the Mets when we play them. We got to beat up on Philly. It's just and the Mets are a potential playoff team, right? And so I think you'll see now with Fernando Tatis out, I think you'll see the Padres drop just a tad, and it will be a 2-man race. I have talked to many a Giants fan this last week and a half or so, and almost to the T, with the exception of one, almost to the T, everybody has said the Giants will not last. You guys will take the division. But we're 3 games out, and the next 3 games for San Francisco is with the Diamondbacks. So that should be 3 wins, right? Dave, have the Diamondbacks gotten 30 wins yet this season? I mean,
I think they're like 37 now.
woo, woo. Yeah, anything more than 35 at this point is just showing off, right?
You know, I saw a great thing on Twitter, not to go back and beat up on Rob, but there was a thing on Twitter that said the Iowa Cubs have been elevated to the major. They've all been called up to the major leagues, literally every single one of them. It's a pretty good tweet.
That's a great tweet. It's a hurtful tweet, but it's a great tweet.
It's a hurtful tweet. We're all showing up. All right, boys, we're all showing up at Rob's house on the 31st of July next season. I'll bring the root beer, Dave, if you'll bring some steaks with you, Ned. If you can bring some, like, potatoes and stuff like that, Pete, we'll do it on your grill just fine. It'll be good, right?
So here's the White Sox schedule the next 3 weeks. Kansas City, the Cubs, Twins. Then it goes Yankees, A's, Rays, Blue Jays.
Oh,
That's tough.
oh,
So we make it through that, we're golden. We only face 2 more playoff teams the rest of the way.
ouch, ouch. Well, boys, this has been fun. I knew this edition was going to get a little passionate with the trade deadline. There was a couple guys that were supposed to show, but again, they've had some health issues and some family stuff. Want to thank Ned, Rob especially, for taking the gut punches and the punches right there on the square on the nose. Dave looked forward to this, I think, just as crosstown rivals do. And so, but I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and appreciate it. Top fans, as you're watching this, feel free to make comments. We're okay with it. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter account's actually going to get back up. Also, if you haven't read some of the articles that are talking about the last portion of the season, please do. Dave's article was fantastic. There's another one up there from the Angels. It's signed by a guy that lives in Laguna Beach here in Orange County, and it's signed Bitter in Laguna, which is awesome. And I'm also putting up a new article. So if you haven't read those yet, by all means, feel free to do so. And we'll talk to you soon, top fans. Want to thank again, Dave, Rob, Ned. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks.